Welcome back to the Tour Today show. My name is Steve Fleck. Every day there is racing at the Tour. We will talk about the highs and the lows, the thrills and the spills, the tragedies and the triumphs at the Tour, aka La Grande Boucle. On each episode of the Tour Today, I will have a special guest on the show with me. Today, I'm pleased to have with me the co-founder and the CEO of Toronto-based bicycle manufacturer and retailer Kind Human Bicycles. Welcome, Gavin Brauer.
Thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, you're first in after the rest day, Gavin. We had the rest day yesterday, and there was some interesting things that happened on the rest day. I will get to that momentarily. So, Gavin, if you just sit tight, I'll go over the summary of what's happened in the last 24 hours and, of course, the racing today. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in to watch today. Really appreciate you being here along for the ride. If you do have any questions for me or my guests, probably the best spot to reach me is via Twitter. You can find me at Steve Fleck. Gavin, where can people find you on social media?
So we are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can either find me directly or Kind Human. kindhuman.cc is our website. kindhuman.cc is awesome, the best place to get me.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, Gavin, just sit tight. I'll go over the stage. It was some exciting racing today. They were on the Atlantic coastline, racing from Île-de-Lan to Île-de-Ré. Very exposed to a lot of winds coming off the Atlantic Ocean. That factored big in the racing. But before we get to the racing specifically, there was mandatory COVID-19 testing for the entire bubble that is the Tour de France. So all the riders, all the support staff, all the race officials, all the media, everything. And the way this was going to work was that if a team had 2 positive tests, they would be taken out of the Tour. So all the riders passed. That's the good news. All the riders did pass, so full positive tests for all the riders. There were 4 positive tests from various teams for support personnel only. And then, ironically and rather unfortunately, the president of the ASO and the Tour director, Christophe Prudhomme, tested positive. So he has had to go into self-isolation for some time and take him out of the race directing position for the race. So that's some unfortunate news. Well, just as stage 7, it was a flat stage, and they were saying, well, not much is going to happen. It's going to be a big bunch sprint, but it was wild and crazy and manic racing right from the get-go. Over 47 kilometers an hour average for the stage today, over a distance of 170 kilometers. The stage was won very emotionally by Sam Bennett of the Dunasec Quick Step team. He is an Irishman. He won in a fantastic sprint with a great setup from his lead-out train, the DQS lead-out train, with a win over Caleb Ewan and Peter Sagan. So Bennett will take the green jersey back from Peter Sagan, who is wearing it today, and he will be very proud to wear that jersey. They are racing to Poitiers tomorrow, an inland village, and a number of years ago, Sean Kelly, another great Irish cyclist and sprinter, won a stage there. So it will be a great day for Sam Bennett to be wearing the green jersey into Poitiers. Lots of comments on social media about the amount of road furniture on the stage today. There were no mountains. It was almost billiard table flat, but there was just continual roundabouts and road furniture. There were numerous crashes that caught a lot of riders out. Fortunately, most of the big sprint favorites and the GC riders were maybe able to make it through unscathed. Once again, Ineos Grenadiers really went to the front, and at key moments in the race, with just massive accelerations with the full team on the front, made some incredible splits off the back, which made the racing really hard. So just again, quick review of the jerseys. No change in the yellow jersey on a stage like today. Primož Roglič stays in yellow. As I mentioned, Sam Bennett into the green jersey based on points that he got on the finish line to overtake Peter Sagan. So Sagan back in second place in that green jersey competition. Brian Coquard and Matteo Trentin based on intermediary sprint point gathering, and then good finishes at the finish line for both Coquard and Trentin. They have moved up into third and fourth place respectively. That green jersey competition is very interesting. It is going to be tough for Peter Sagan to get that record-breaking 8th green jersey of his. White jersey, Egan Bernal, defending champion, still in the top position in that jersey. KOM, no change on a stage like today. There were no points on offer. So Benoit Cosnefoy, the young French rider from AG2R, will still be in first spot. And in the team competition, there was a change after the last stage. The Movistar team, the Spanish-based Movistar team, moved into first place. EF Pro Cycling, which had been in first place in the team competition, drops back into second spot. So the stage tomorrow, they are heading, as I mentioned, to Poitiers. They're heading inland from Châtillon-Plage on the coast to Poitiers. More or less pretty flat. Again, it's going to be one for the sprinters again, but expect action. These stages, these flat stages, some of these transitional stages that they've had have had some very, very exciting racing, despite the fact that the terrain is not challenging the riders that much, and it's living up to that old adage that the riders make the race. So 167 kilometers they will race tomorrow with a finish in Poitiers. Back to you, Gavin. Why start a bike company? What was the I talked about a manic stage day. What was the manic and crazy idea to come up with starting a bike company?
So I've wanted to do this since I was a kid. I remember a vivid memory being about 12 years old, and I was in a sporting goods store and said, this is what I want to do with my life. And so I just spent basically a lot of my education and work experience trying to figure out how to do that. And one day finally got the guts to pull the trigger.
Well done. Congratulations. And you had some help. You have a partner as well. Who is that?
Yeah, so there's three of us in the business.
Okay.
There's myself, Ayel, who is the guy who builds all our bikes, and all our customers at the shop know him. He works with me in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And then our third partner is Adam, who lives down in the States, and he helps us mostly with marketing and creative and product.
Right. And what is in the name Kind Human? Is there something there beyond the obvious of just being a really great and awesome human being?
So I think that's pretty much the bulk of it. Mm-hmm. That is what it is. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, we really exist to elevate the human experience and bring active adventure into the daily lives of our customer.
Awesome. And just lost my train of thought there. Yes. So I was going to ask something else, but I'm going back. My brain is kind of pandemic scrambled as many are. And I remember going back, and I can't remember if it was you, Gavin, I was talking to, but I know I spoke to a number of people, friends, contacts of mine in the bike business, be they on the wholesale side or the brand side or the retail side, talking to them in the very first days of the pandemic, the lockdown, the shutdown, when everything was closing down, and people were kind of in panic mode. They thought this was going to be devastating to their businesses, but it's actually turned into a rather pleasant surprise with a silver lining for the bike business. How has it been for you and the team at Kind Human?
So yeah, I remember back in March when this first hit, it was pure panic and not knowing if we'd be allowed to operate, and then even if we were, how we would. But once the sun came out after the winter, people just started riding bikes, and I think the global supply chain was basically sold out of bikes in about 14 weeks, which was absolutely crazy. For us, we've been a lot luckier than most, but it's been a really, really hard summer, and I'd rather not repeat this. I think there's much better ways for us to be able to grow the bike business and with a lot less stress.
And hard in what way, Gavin? Like, how has it been hard? If is such a demand for bikes, surely that's a good thing, isn't it?
So one thing to remember is supply is limited.
Right.
So if we order bikes 6 months to a year in advance, so if you didn't have the stock, you didn't have, like, we answer the phone and it's the same conversation 20 times a day. Yeah, sorry, we don't have that bike. It's been sold out for about 2 months now. So that's the one side of it. The other side is that we, like, tubes sold out. Mm-hmm. So we make our own bikes and we're a bike brand, but we also operate our own shop.
Right.
And so somebody comes in for a tune-up and you can't complete a tune-up because you can't get a tube or a
Mm.
brake pad, or and then on top of that, you're spending 5 times as much time trying to find that brake pad because the two sources you usually buy it from are out of stock.
Hmm.
And there are 1,001 different parts on a bike, nothing standard. So it just makes it so much harder to service a customer.
Now, the big sales I heard were in the 500, maybe up to about $1,000 range. I mean, you literally could not find a new bike anywhere in North America in the 500 to $1,000 range. The Kind Human bike range is, help me out, but I'm knowing the range and the product available. You're more sort of mid end to very high end, like some of the best, bikes, high end racing bikes you can find. And how have your sales been sort of impacted that? Because I don't think you have a bike that's less than $1,000 in the line.
Yeah, so for Kind Human bike sales early in the spring, that kind of came to a grinding halt. People were very, very afraid about employment, and so they weren't buying expensive bikes. We were lucky because we operate our own store, so we were able to sell people Cannondales and fill that need through service and lower priced products.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like June 15th, like all of a sudden orders just started flowing. And like right now we're beginning of September and we have more bikes in production for our custom paint line than we've ever had at one time before. So for us, the season really just shifted 2 months later.
And it's important to remember that, as you had said, Gavin, this is a supply chain problem is that everything shut down in China for a period of time. So everything on the production supply side, be it bikes, be it parts and accessories, like literally anything that was manufactured in China or other sort of offshore, manufacturing operations, that was shut down for an extended period of time too. So there was a real, bump in the road, if you will, on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, so you had this massive surge of demand, which is fantastic. But then on the flip side, supply really. Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry, that's
life working at home. We all
exactly.
get. I occasionally get the dog. I get the dog sort of wandering. There's your lunch. Get a hand delivered to your table. Wow, that's fantastic.
It's, some fresh roti.
Fresh roti.
Yeah.
Can I get some of that? I occasionally have the dog like wandering into the shot here. Where were we? We were talking about the supply side. Yeah.
Yeah. So while you had the surge in demand, at the same time you had a drop in supply. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the factories have come back online, but they're coming back at lower capacities. And the big problem right now are the ports. So everything is shipped by boat, and there are no shipping containers. And the parts are backed up. So it's just the supply chain is going to continue to be highly volatile for the foreseeable future.
So this year, obviously, big surge in sales, reasonably good for business, some frustrating and challenging times on supply and that, but the demand is there. What is this going to do to business going forward into next year and the year after? Because, I mean, that's really where, the full fulfillment of this might, come through.
Well, I think next summer is going to be very similar to this summer from the bike industry perspective of very, very high demand for bikes. Bikes have turned out to be a phenomenal opportunity for people with, one, being able to get outside, to stay active. They fill a need for transportation. So they fill a wide variety of needs, from that $500 entry-level bike all the way up to the super expensive bikes that you and I love to ride. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's the opportunity for the industry is, how do we get all these people who are swarming to bikes now, and how do we keep them?
Yes. And it's that conversion thing. Like I see this, Gavin, in my own neighborhood, there's all kinds of people out I've never seen like on bikes before, just generally being more physically active. And we've had a great summer of weather here in the GTA as well. It's been one of the nicest summers that I can remember in recent history, with just a phenomenal stretch of super warm, nice sunny days. But just generally, there's been more people out on bikes, and a lot of people are on you can tell that they've gone into the back of the garage and they've got that mountain bike that they bought back in the late 1980s or, the 1990s. You can tell by just the the brand of the bike or the look and feel of the color scheme on the bike, the heritage of it. But how do we convert on that? Like, how do we get those people to, I hate to say, become more serious or maybe more committed, to making, cycling, an everyday part of their lives somehow, be it, from a utilitarian perspective or from fitness or fun, or maybe even taking it to the next level and getting into racing?
So I think there's really two things that as a society, industry, we kind of need to do. First part is, as an industry, we need to meet these people where they are. And we need to be providing products and a shopping experience based on what it is they want, as opposed to us pushing our agenda on them. Because a lot of these people didn't take to cycling because of stuff like the Tour de France. They've taken it because of the love of the bike, which is a universal human quality. And so as an industry, we need to be marketing and providing products to them based on what it is they want and meeting their needs. So I think that's the first part. The second part is more of a societal issue. And I think there's a lot of work in like the behavioral sciences as to why do people do the things they do. And I've studied under a guy named BJ Fogg, who wrote a book called Tiny Habits. And as a Tiny Habits certified coach, I've been able to study a lot of what he's been doing. And if you look at his models on behavior, there's really three things that get people to do something, such as riding a bike. You've got motivation on one axis, you've got ability, and then you need a prompt in order to prompt you to actually do the behavior. So what's happened is, with COVID, we've had this massive spike in motivation, and which has brought people out. In order to keep them, my belief is we got to focus on the ability side of behavior. And basically, we need to make it easier for people to ride bikes. So what does that mean? It means safer streets. It means bike parking. It means more places to leisurely go for a bike ride. It means better quality bike shops who can service those bikes and give them great product. So it's by focusing on making cycling easier to do, as well as helping people upgrade their skills, that I think we translate this into a lasting effect.
It's interesting you mentioned the Tour de France, and this show is all about the Tour de France, the Tour Today show with myself and my guests. And the Tour de France, it used to be a bigger part of that sort of marketing mix of bike brands and parts and accessory suppliers in the business. And you still do some of that. And we were hoping to have Adam Meyerson on, a great cyclist, former professional cyclist who still cycles at a high level. I believe he's the US 45 plus cyclocross champion. You still do some of that traditional, sponsorship with an athlete and a rider like Adam. Why do you still do that? Because
at the end of the day, performance is a big piece of what sells bikes. And so the Tour de France is still a very important piece, and professional sponsorship is a very important piece of an authentic cycling brand, and because it's about performance.
Right.
When it comes to the people that we, a Kind Human, sponsor, we always look at our sponsorship of it's the person first.
Yes.
And then results. So whenever we get an opportunity to sponsor a rider, it's always about who they are. Is it the type of person that I would want to spend a weekend with? Would I want to send my customer out for a ride with them? I've heard these stories about these like very, very high profile bike riders who people spend thousands of dollars to go on a bike ride with them. They show up for 20 minutes and then the rest of the ride is on their own.
Right.
So it's really about the people for us.
Yes. And knowing Adam, as little as I do, I mean, I've met him a couple of times at races and events where I've been sort of working as an announcer. He fits that mold of that kind, to use your company's name, Gavin. He fits the mold of that kind human that would handhold someone through sort of a cycling experience to make it a positive experience, for them. And, he's a great, as I said, former professional rider, still rides cyclocross and criteriums at a very high level in the masters level competition. As I said, we were hoping to have him on the show today, but a bit of a conflict. We couldn't make that happen. But a shout out to Adam for all the great work he does, not just for you guys at Kind Human, but just cycling in general. Gavin, the word disruption, gets used a lot in a business, like cycling. And, we see it at retail, we see it at wholesale. You do have a retail operation, but one of the key principles of your business is you also have direct to consumer. Now, there's been big talk about like the bigger brands, doing direct to consumer, but that's been something you at Kind Human have been already doing for a number of years. How is that aspect of your business going? And how can you compete, with these bigger, much more high profile brands that are now shifting a lot of their resources and emphasis to DTC, as they say, at direct to consumer?
So there's a number of things to unpack within that question. So one, yes, we've been doing this since day one. We launched our business as a direct-to-consumer bike brand, which was both in our own store as well as our own website, as well as selling through wholesale channels. So we've learned a tremendous amount from over the past 7 years about e-commerce and how do you build a brand direct to consumer. So that has been to our benefit that we've just had to learn that from the beginning. As far as competing, I look at direct to consumer very similar to any channel. It's a distribution channel, and so we make a damn good bike. That is number one. So our customers love our bikes and they love riding them. And so we compete by making a great quality product. Our differentiation comes on top of that with the way it's the community of Kind Human. And it's about treating people with unwavering kindness. And that's something we are going to win at every single time. And so it's right now we're a small bike brand. We're growing, and we're getting to a point where we're beyond the early adopters, which is really cool. Like I remember the days when people walk into our shop and say, "Where are your bikes made?" Because they never heard about us, and that was the only thing they could think to ask. Now we got people walking to the shop, and it's, "Oh, I was out for a ride this weekend, and I saw 3 Kind Human bikes on the road." I'm like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And so it's by growing the name, getting out there, more people experiencing us, and really creating direct relationships with our customers.
Well, it's nice, when you grow beyond a point where people are just buying because you're different, hip, and cool, and as you had said, you've reached a critical mass where you can just go out on a club group ride and see a few of the bikes. That must make you feel really proud that you've reached that point.
Yeah, it's one of my proudest moments of running Kind Human was I remember a Saturday morning I was out for a ride and I saw one of our bikes on the back of somebody's car. And at first I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's a cool bike. And then I looked again and I'm like, oh my God, I made that bike. And so to be able to experience that in the real world, that was just really, really cool.
Again, obviously, this is a show about the Tour de France and road racing, but probably the biggest thing going on, in the whole of the bike business right now is this whole gravel thing, be it sort of gravel riding for pleasure or gravel racing. When you hear the word sort of gravel riding or gravel bike, and I know you have some great products, in the Kind Human range, that would fit into that category. But when you hear, the word gravel riding or, gravel racing or gravel bike, what does it mean to you?
So there's a statement that has been around for a long time, which is all bikes are gravel bikes. And I think I've been on rides where I remember riding up Bayview, north of Stouffville. There's some really fun mountain bike tracks. I was out for a ride on my own one day on my Campione, which is an aero road bike. It was dry, and I'm like, I've never been down this path before. I wonder where it goes. And so I took my aero bike onto gravel roads and mountain bike trails. I couldn't it wasn't a very long ride on that, but it was fun. And I think that's really what gravel is about. It's about the adventure. It's about being able to push ourselves and go explore the world in a new way on a bike that we, as riders, we all love doing.
What's next for Kind Human? What any sort of major bike models, in the channel that you can talk about? I know some of this stuff is kept under wraps until it comes out, but anything new on the bike front and on the business front?
Well, on the bike front, one of the things we're looking at more and more is lifestyle bikes, and how do we take Kind Human to a more accessible price point. We released our first aluminum bike, which is an aluminum gravel bike that is made in Canada, painted in Canada, and we sell it for $23.99 Canadian. And that's been like, we've had overwhelming interest in that bike. It's been quite exciting to watch that. And so we're looking at how do we do more of that. And then, like every bike company, e-bikes. I think they're fantastic. I think it's great for cyclists. I also think it's great for cities and as a transportation option and a way to make the world a better place. Awesome.
Gavin, thank you for joining us today. Just final question for you. I'll put you on the spot. I know you're not following blow by blow the Tour de France, but pick a rider. Who's going to win this?
Oh, I have no idea who's going to win. But what I was watching on Saturday in the mountain stages, and it was really cool to just be able to watch these guys ride up mountains like superheroes.
That's okay. I mean, it's just for so many people, I think it's just taking in the spectacle of it all and seeing sort of racing, at this level and just the impressive things that, all the riders do, from the yellow jersey wear right back to the Lanterne Rouge. It really is truly extraordinary. It's great to see the tour going. I think we need stuff like this going on. It's been some up and down and challenging times, all across the world, but great to see, sport going on at this level. You've been watching the Tour Today show. My guest today has been Gavin Brauer, the co-founder and CEO of Kind Human Bicycles. Again, Gavin, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you as always.
My guest tomorrow for stage 11 of the Tour Today show will be the president of Canyon Bicycles of North America, Blair Clark. I'm Steve Fleck. On behalf of the whole team at Endurance Zone TV, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for the Tour Today show.